my Crystal Loves Texas podcast family.
Hello.
How are you guys doing? We actually got a third person in here today. You see, we kept it tight, but that's okay. We're gonna scoot back a little bit so it'll look like we're in a bigger spot. No, but guys, thank you so much, Rebecca. This is our first. My voice is better.
Right.
My voice is a little bit better. It was not good last week, but this is our first time for our new Friday spot.
Right.
Yes.
So guys, we will no longer be on Wednesday anymore. So don't
No.
look for us on Wednesday.
Don't look for us on Wednesday. We are not going to be there because we are both teachers and we got to try to get from school and get downtown to the studio and get things done. So we need to at least be a little mellow when we get here, right? Yes. But Rebecca Williams, we are so excited today.
Yay.
Because you and I have been talking about elections and what we can do to make sure these elections are even more exciting than they've been in the past couple of years.
I know. I'm tired of excitement. Can we just do boring for the next 20 years?
You gonna do boring for the next 20 years? Well, you know what? We can't do boring because we gotta keep that ball moving and rolling ahead. And with that in mind, we decided we needed to bring in an expert. And let me tell you why this young lady that we have in today is an expert. First of all, Miss Carmela Walker. Give her a hand.
Woo! We don't have a clap track, guys. We gotta
get a clap track in here. We gotta get a clap track in here. But we had to bring her in because she is an advocate for voting rights in Houston. And she has been working tirelessly for several years trying to make sure that people are enfranchised. And that's what it's about.
Right.
It's about being enfranchised and making sure that everyone is able to have a seat at the table if they want to. First of all, we got to make sure they understand how important it is.
Right.
But she wants to make sure that everyone who deserves a seat at that table has got a seat at that table. And I'm going to now let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about herself. Miss Carmela, how are you?
Thank you, ladies. I just wanted to say that you're spectacular.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
such a wonderful job to inform community, and I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to say that it's an honor to be here.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
thank
We, have-
you.
we love doing this because we think people deserve it.
They do.
You know?
They deserve to be
And-
informed.
Yeah,
Not
and-
misinformed.
That's right.
Informed.
That's right. And we've been able to build slowly over the past 3 years, build a really nice little following.
Following,
And
yeah.
it's growing. It seems like it's growing every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are up to about at least 5,000 views per month.
That's wonderful.
And,
Yes.
and we're excited. And that's just on Facebook. So on YouTube, it's even more.
Wow.
But we go live. It's going to be every Friday, as close to 7 o'clock as we can try to make it. Right, Rebecca?
Yeah.
But
Hey,
thank you.
we ain't that dependable.
That's right. We are. Yeah, don't listen to her. Don't listen to her. We try to be as dependable. We got to deal with technology.
Yeah.
Technology is what it is. And we make it work. But I want to allow Carmela to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about where she's from, how she got to Houston, and how she became so interested in making sure that she's working on behalf of others, especially in the realm of voting.
Well, I actually landed in Houston. I'm originally from New York, Brooklyn, New York, and landed in Houston because my parents moved. We were living in Florida at the time.
Okay.
So I actually am from New York, lived in DC,
Okay.
and wanted to move to Florida. And while we were in Florida, my mother was she's an avid shadow real estate mogul.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And so when they transitioned and moved relocated to Texas,
Okay.
and at that time, the housing market was not that great in South Florida.
Okay.
And so there was a transition happening, and she
Wow.
kept saying, "You need to come to Texas. Texas is wonderful.
Yes.
You need to come to Texas." And I never envisioned being here.
Okay.
And so when I came to visit, I liked it, and then I transferred to Houston through I was working for a mortgage company
Okay.
at the time. And so I figured that I would go to Dallas first, right, instead of going to Houston. And so I worked in Dallas for a while and then came back to Houston, and I'm here now.
Well, I gotta ask you this. You just brought this up, so I'm gonna harp on this for a minute. Now, we know that in Florida, the political climate, just in the past, 6 years or
Oh
so,
my God.
has been
As long as
sort of volatile. Has it always been that way? Or,
Well, no, Florida is a melting pot,
right,
and of course you have folks from Cuba and Puerto Rico, you
the
have
islands,
Haitians,
yes.
islands. And so the question to that end is, why wouldn't it be or reflect anything other than the melting pot that it is? And
Right.
it wasn't as egregious. The laws
Okay.
weren't as egregious. I think that because of the turnover and
That's
who's
right.
there now,
Right.
it's become that way.
And that's what I wanted to bring shed a little bit of light on it. I remember everyone wanted to get to Florida, to be in Florida. Now it's a little bit different. It's more polarizing,
It is.
and an
Absolutely.
isolationist.
Absolutely.
And hopefully very soon in the next few years we'll get back to that. Hopefully we will.
Well, I know they just lifted the embargo.
Okay.
Biden just lifted the embargo. So,
Very good.
so we'll see what happens. And of course, there was Elian Gonzalez and what happened with Gina
Yes.
Reno
Mhm.
and all of the upheaval.
Exactly.
But I think that what's happening is that these states are all kind of congealed. The southern states are congealed, and
Yes.
there's a one narrative coming out of the southern states, and that's regarding the preservation of something that all of this climate that we're all in right now, that we don't necessarily understand, but we know that we're going to feel the effects of.
Well, you know what, Carmela? While Rebecca opens her questions, I'm going to say this, and I've said this before on here, and Rebecca knows that I say it, and we laugh about it, but it's very true. There is a very staunch move to try to go back to a more homogenous idea of what
I'm
things
thinking
should be.
I'm thinking horse and buggies.
But you know what? Here's the thing. But think
The
about
wagon.
this. In terms
Horse
of
in the wagon.
talking about things that are transportation related, Carmela, you can't stop a moving train.
Precisely, you can.
Okay, and we know that train is moving in a certain direction.
Indeed, it is.
And I'm a history teacher, so I teach about Custer's Last Stand.
Mm.
And you're going to, and so does Rebecca.
Mhm.
And this is, I think it's normal for a lot of the things that are within the climate of what's happening in Texas right now to be happening, because it's the last stand before an inevitable shift, because everything cosmetically is shifting in our country right now.
Well, and I think that there was a reflection that reflected that reflection would be indicative of what happened with during this election cycle. And I believe that as we've talked about, Rebecca, there was a sense of apathy and disbelief, and as a result of that played out in this election cycle that we just came out of. And then on top of that, I think what's reflected, you have 463,000 votes that were purged, based and then there's this requirement for, to try to prove your citizenship and eligibility. So
And all of that is part of the last grasp.
this is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I do believe though that our constituents, our community is powerful. I believe in us. And I think that if our community can see a representation of themselves and the fact that we're standing together
Absolutely.
in community unity
Yes.
and not disenfranchised,
Yes.
I believe that there would be a turn of events. And I think that, even though there is apathy and there's this disconnect happening and this woke conversation happening,
Right.
we're not woke, we're awake.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, I
And
take
you know what?
offense to the woke discussion. We're awake.
And absolutely, you think about this, and whenever you allow anyone to snatch or take something and put a negative spin on a narrative, create a narrative for it, shame on you. To be awake and to be aware is something that's a good thing. How dare anyone try and put a negative spin on it. But people will try to do that. But you've got to buy into that to let people do that. So I don't think being woke is a bad. I'm woke, okay? I'm awake, I'm aware. I am keenly in touch with things that are going on
And let's
around
be
me.
clear, the
Yes.
wokeness is a dogma. So
Say over some, Rebecca. Yeah.
But I will say, even though you're saying that it's a dogma, I do believe in word spells, and I do believe
Yeah.
that we have to be now in this climate. We need to be intentional,
Yes.
and we need to define for ourselves who we are and what we are and what we
Yes.
stand for and how we plan on moving.
That's right.
You know,
Mhm.
and so that's important.
Okay, so oh my God, you answered.
We're not past tense.
That's okay. Just go
We're
into
not
the
past
next
tense.
one.
We're present tense.
Yes.
Okay, so I understand that you have always been involved in community equity, especially in the realm of voting and social and political representation. So you want to talk a little bit?
How did you get involved in that?
So I, as a graduate of Howard University,
Come on, HBCU. Come on, HBCU.
and I entered in a graduate within the master's program in public administration with
Yes.
Nikki Leland Barbara Jordan School.
Okay.
I went into and decided to get my master's degree because as I was working in the space of social work, I was questioning this glass ceiling, and I've always been an advocate. You know, women with children who are homeless. I've always been an advocate. While I was in
Right.
DC, I've
Right.
always
Underserved. Yes.
underserved, right? Communities.
Absolutely.
And so I began to just question as I was. We had a grant. We were working with this grant, and the grant included folks from Star of Hope and
Okay.
Salvation Army, et cetera.
Right.
And so I started to coach our clients.
Okay.
And so it wasn't just about bus passes after a while.
Oh,
And
right.
it wasn't just about boot up and suit up, right? There was something socially wrong. There was
Okay.
something that I couldn't understand why in Houston we had this glass ceiling. Folks were unable to, even if they had backgrounds and they were
Right.
part of the justice impacted population,
Yes.
why they were not segueing through to get jobs.
Wow.
I even had a situation where I would have clients come in and they would tell me their first name,
Mm-hmm.
and because of their first name, they weren't able to get
Oh, yeah.
jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
I would have to redo the resume, and I would have to place the first initial there, but then they would
That's
have to use the
right.
middle name
That's right.
in order for it to
Even
be
to get the
more
interview.
palatable.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so that at that point I said, I think I need to do something different.
Okay.
And so the way in which I did that is I enrolled in the public administration, public policy program.
Okay.
And through Dr. Michael Adams, he was there. He was wonderful. He was my mentor.
Okay.
And once I graduated, actually in the midst of that program, the capstone was to serve through the TLIP program, the Texas
Legislation later.
Okay. Yes.
And so Texas Legislative Internship Program through Commissioner Ellis.
Yes.
And so I went ahead and served at the 83rd Legislature
Okay.
because I wanted to see a more of a broader vision of how the dots are connected in Texas. I didn't understand it. I could say that for New York, and I could potentially say that for Washington D.C.
Right.
Marion Barry,
Yes.
R.I.P. Marion Barry, and people didn't really understand that. But
Yes.
Marion Barry was one of the pillars in
Yes.
the DC community that people don't understand when you talk about it.
Right.
He was the one that held Black contracts for Black people in DC.
Now,
And a lot of people didn't understand that, but Texas, I wanted to see how it worked.
Carmela, I got to ask you this because you touched on something that I think we need to be keenly aware of, especially in the African American community. And that is, and you and I talked about this the other night, when we are purposing to matriculate in the mainstream, and that's where we're going to be, and that's what, because let's face it, many of us seek out an Ivy League school because we want to get the best opportunities at the best firms and such. Okay, what we perceive to be the best. Okay, when that is the case, if this is the ballpark that we're going to play in, we've got to come with the right equipment.
Right.
And if that's the case, then we will always have to put the initial in front of the name. If we are going to have names that are going to are going to shine the light on ethnicity before we walk in the door.
Mm.
But that is something that we have to, if that is the field and the arena that we're going to play in, we can't be upset about that. But like I was saying to you the other day, I believe what's important for us to do, and Rebecca, you and I talk about this a lot. We've got to begin creating spaces and places in our own community where we're creating opportunities.
Absolutely.
And like you said, you brought that circle that right back around to Green in Tulsa.
Oklahoma?
Yes. Was it Green?
1921?
No, Greenville. What's the name of the neighborhood in Tulsa? I should know this. I'm embarrassing myself now.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street. What was the name of the? It was a community that it was called.
Yeah.
I believe it was Green. Was it Greenwood or Greenville or something like that? But in that square mile, opportunities were created for African American people by other African American people. We built wealth, we built banks, we built opportunities. We educated ourselves. We went on to colleges and universities from right out of that small community, and that is what we were about at that point in time. Not because we necessarily wanted to, but because we had to.
And I think
Yes.
this is one of the reasons why Dr. King talked about, leading us into a burning house.
Uh-huh.
Because I think after a while he recognized and realized that we are positioning ourselves to be at the footstool of
Society. Yeah.
And
Well, I think so. It's a paradigm, right? So
Can I say something?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's a paradigm.
What you mean?
So what I mean by that is this. So it's what W.E.B. Du Bois calls the double consciousness, right? So for those of the Souls of Black Folks is one of the most powerful books I've ever read. It's the double consciousness, right? So here am I, this minority. I know we had to talk about that. That's her eyes book for a reason. But here I am. Well, just going back to Du Bois. Here I am, this Black man in 1920 America, highly educated, Harvard educated, teaching at Fisk, teaching at Howard.
Right.
And then it's like, I'm surrounded by people who aren't, So what do I do with that? Right? So then he comes up with the talented tip there.
Yes.
10% of us will educate the next 10% that will educate the next 10%.
That's right.
He even had come to regret later on in life. Like the theory behind it was beautiful, but he even said it became cultivated in elitism.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right. And then he kind of spun
Cult or colorism?
Cultivated in elitism.
Oh, culted. Okay. Because there is a colorism.
Right. But I was
as well.
Right.
No. I just want to make sure that
Yeah. Cultivated in cultivated in elitism. And then later on he took on Garvey's Pan-Africanism.
Right.
But my point to all of that is that I think for us in our own community, just to piggyback on what you said, Crystal, I do agree with that wholeheartedly. But we still face today, which I don't think he should have divorced that principle. We still are facing that today. It's the double consciousness, right?
Ooh.
So here we are, 92% who voted in a certain direction of Black women.
Right.
Studies and statistics all different studies are saying Black women are getting educated. Black women are getting educated.
Yes.
We are the highest entrepreneurs.
Right.
We are the highest. So we know what opportunities come along with that.
Right.
We want those same opportunities for our children.
Right.
Indeed.
So the double consciousness comes in. Am I getting that right here in this neighborhood? Am I getting this in Sunnyside? Am I getting, and I still live in Sunnyside, so I don't want to hear any, So I'm just saying, am I getting this in Sunnyside? Am I getting this in the old third ward? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Am I getting this in these areas? So if I'm seeing that now, I understand what you're saying, Crystal.
Mhm.
If we all stayed and built up and had our own,
But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be an either or. We can work in our communities, like much like you and I are doing. I get up and I go to work somewhere that is not centered in the African American community,
right,
but I make sure that I bring my resources
right.
back and do what I can in the community to help build that community.
So what do you say? But it still goes along with what I'm saying,
Mhm.
because what if you say, I don't necessarily think that what I'm doing in this community is going to be effective enough. Again, we're still dealing with double consciousness, right? What if I bring my resources going back to the community, it's not going to be appreciated, it's not going to be useful, it's not going to,
Well,
so that's what I'm saying. We have to take all of those factors in when we're talking about things like that.
but you know what? I would say that's tunnel vision in a sense, simply because when you go in and you are disseminating these resources, so many more appreciate it than the handful that don't. And even if it's the opposite, for the ones that appreciate it, they're going to go in and develop that to a magnitude that's going to reach so many more people. You're always, and this is not just simply true of the African American community. This is true in any community. You're going to have people who don't appreciate, who like the station where they are right now,
Right,
and they will complain about the station, but they won't do anything to change the station.
right.
That's part of society. Historically, that is in every sector of society.
I'm going to put a spin on this, and I'm going to
Okay.
say this. I'm
Mhm.
going to say that I heard Joy DeGruy
Okay.
say something that I felt that was pretty profound, and that is one of the reasons. And I'm going to just surmise how I interpreted some of this, right?
Okay.
Because I see it every day and boots on the ground and
Yes.
being in the social services
Sector. Yeah.
sector and the political sector.
Yes.
She said we never, ever, no one ever came to us and said, there's some mental health challenges
I want to talk about that.
that you have, that your community has. We never received any help.
They haven't been
So
addressed.
if,
Yes.
in fact, we're consistently catered to as, and we talked about this, Rebecca, right? About being the largest consumers,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
We're constantly being catered to buy,
Yes.
buy.
Yes.
We're constantly seeing uh, footage of our ancestors or people that came before us being burned, beaten, hosed, hung. And this is a constant play on the psyche.
Yes.
So from my perspective, I really believe that the resources that you talk about, that folks will say, hey, I need A, B, C, D, and E, and I've gone through it all the time. I've got
Right.
stories to tell
Right.
about clients that I've served
Yes.
who have challenges with codependency.
Yes.
And they're unable to, quote unquote, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they haven't received the mental health services needed in order to triage and triumph
Right.
over the state of affairs that are happening right now, because we're always triggered. We're always
Yes.
in need.
Yes.
Our folks are always on the cliff.
Right.
And so we have to be able to throw out the line to teach people how to fish.
Absolutely.
Come, let's sit
Absolutely.
down with me and let
Yes.
me show you
Yes.
that there are 4 ways to build wealth.
That's right.
Right? You have, and we know what they are. They're entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's real estate.
Yes.
It's trust investments and trust funds.
Right.
And insurance.
Absolutely.
We know this.
Yes.
And so our community then, and to the point of when Chuck Carter G. Woodson said, if you can leave the front door open,
Right.
but if you've always been going through the back door, you never even try the front door, you'll always be going through the back door.
You're conditioned to do that.
So
Yeah.
this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a level of conditioning, just like
Right.
we're talking about voting, right?
Yes.
What is it about the process that is really making people apathetic about going to these polls?
Yes.
What is it that they are not seeing? And are we surveying the community in a way, listening to their concerns? And I'm not just talking about panel call and response.
Yes.
I'm talking about sitting in circles and dissecting what it
Yes.
is that are what those true aspects of these challenges are in order for us to address them. Bring folks from the stationary agencies to
Yes.
come and to be brave enough to talk about what it is versus what it isn't. I would rather someone tell me the truth. And I
Right.
know that my clients and
Right.
folks that I've spoken to in the community
Right.
believe the same.
Right.
If you're going to tell me the truth, just tell me the truth.
Well, you know
If
what,
you can, you
Carl?
can. If you can't, you cannot. But
Yes.
I need to be able to go to some foundational agencies to get the information that I need that can spend time with me
Yes.
so that I will be able to know how to have my own fishing pole, thread my own needle and get out there and fish for my food.
Well,
Now,
one of the things.
now let me throw this out there. That was a perfect segue. Perfect segue, Carmelo, because you're here. And we brought you here because you have some touch points for us, because that is our concern. What in the world is it that's keeping us away, as especially the younger voters? We know the older people are going to do it. They're the ones that march, okay? But the younger people, what's keeping them from being engaged in their future enough to use the tools that we're given in this country to help affect that future?
Well,
Why are they not?
I read a stat that said, I think it was in the previous election before 2023, that
Right.
there were 70% of voters under 40 that did not vote.
Yes.
And so the one factor, because my son and I, who's 17, he talks about this all the time.
Mhm.
He's like, you all are just so disconnected. He says this to me. He said, you all are so separatist in your thinking.
Like what? Please
He
break
was
that
just
down.
well, he was just saying, we're always talking about race and we're always at odds. And so now that he's a little bit older, he said that when he was about 15, 16,
Yes,
but now
yes.
he's a little bit older,
He's understanding.
he's understanding,
Right.
he's growing.
And he's observed more.
Right.
Yes.
He's growing his legs. He's getting his legs on.
Exactly.
And and on the front and on the edge of the issues, right?
Yes.
But I will say the one word, and this is across age groups,
Okay.
across age, the strata,
Yes.
which is trust. It just
Wow.
boils down to one word, and that's trust. Either people are going to see the measurement of what we do, or they're going to see the measurement of what we don't do.
Hmm.
And we know that race is a construct.
Yes.
We know this.
Yes.
But we can't say that when the narrative is always that, because people are talking about DEI, and Rebecca,
Yes.
so we talked about this. It's not about DEI. It's about heritage, culture, and tradition.
Right.
And we need to start defining what it is, and we need to start speaking to it, because what it is it's a disillusion of culture. It's the eradication of tradition,
Right.
right?
The attempt
And
to.
it's about it's overshadowing our heritage and what we've been able to.
And I'll take it a
Yes.
step further than that, because I've been having these discussions the last couple of weeks with friends, family, and everybody.
How about your students? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, they're not. We teach middle school, so they're not there.
So
Yeah.
So one of the things that we have to call, like you said, call that thing a thing. We have a group of people that have been in power, real power,
Yes.
for a very long time.
Since the beginning of the country.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
And they have an inbred idea that power belongs to them forever. Let's just be real, right? That's why we have
Ever.
right, forever, ever, right?
That's their idea.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where we coined the term privilege, and what comes in front of that.
Precisely.
Right?
Precisely.
So now that more people are coming into the world, more people are getting educated, more people are availing
More
themselves,
diverse people. Yes.
becoming more diversified.
Yes.
Now we're losing our minds, because what you mean she gets to sit in that medical school and I don't? And my grandfather purchased and have endowments at this particular medical school forever, and you saying that I can't? What?
Well,
I think that's something that we are afraid to talk about. you know, because we don't want to be offensive. But it's that.
Well, you know, now the medical the African Americans that are applying to medical schools, now they're rejecting those applications. I don't know
Right.
if you were,
So that's
I
what
know
I'm
that
saying.
you're on the pulse, you're
So
aware of that.
right.
But the thing is that we have to be able to create our own
Yes.
Right.
narrative
Yes.
and our own
Yes.
structures. This is what it's coming down to.
Yes.
Whether we want to believe it or not, whether we want to own it or not, whether
Gotta
we want
create
to
our
invest
own.
in it or
That's
not.
right.
What is happening is that we are off the breast, and we have
Yeah.
community family members that are on the cliff.
Yes.
And you know, we talk about even this bridge between the continent of Akebulon, and don't say Africa.
Right.
I'll say the real name,
Right.
Akebulon, and you know, and I've had friends who lived on the continent, and they'll say, you know, wow, I had a friend of mine who's a raw food chef, and she was saying, yeah, you know, I
Right.
went over for 15 years, I've been traveling back and forth, and there's this element of dual colonization. Well, that's dissolving now.
Right.
And so then there's this other argument about, well, why should I leave here? Because I know people that look like you and me who are indigenous
Right.
Americans,
Right.
Yes.
traditional tribal
Right.
that were us, and because of the migration from
Right.
Alaska,
Right.
Right.
into
Straight.
right and right,
Yeah.
and so they would say, my people are from here. I'm not leaving. Well,
Yeah.
if that's the
And they
case,
have a point.
no, they do, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly valid.
Right.
However, within, and we talked about, you said cultivation, but we would talk about colorism.
Mhm.
These are subject matters that we don't necessarily want to talk about
Right.
either, because
And
there are
I
levels
it,
of engagement with that and access, and
because
we need access.
because and
We have to create that.
when it comes
That's what I was gonna say. That I'm so glad you added that. Yes.
But yeah, I think too where the apathy comes from. Let's just be honest and call a thing what it is. A lot of our people are not knowledgeable
Yes.
about the political system. They're not knowledgeable about the education. Like it was so many people that I had to tell, and I'm sorry, Crystal, I gotta say this. It was so many people I had to tell that Trump didn't send you no checks.
He didn't build those Trump bucks.
Right. You do know that there's a Congress and their job is to appropriate money for things. So the president, no money comes out of the Oval Office.
No, that's right.
The appropriations or the money that's given
right.
comes out
That's
of
right.
Congress.
That's right.
Do you know how many? And sadly, I had to tell some educated people this. Like, are you serious
Yes.
right now?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
But-
everyone wants the decisions made. So this is the
So that's what I'm saying. I didn't mean to
No,
cut you
no,
off,
no,
but
no.
but that's the point
I
that I
got you
wanted to make.
off.
Is that the apathy, a lot of the apathy is coming from the lack of knowledge because they don't know. And then on the back end, the people that do know, like the three of us that are sitting here, not enough of us are going out and saying, wait a minute, let me explain to you why voting is important. And
Yeah, because we're talking about redistricting.
And that's why.
And
And
the
that's why we got
reconvening of
platforms
how-
like this.
Yes. So let me tell you why it's important. Let me tell you why your vote matters. Let me tell you why gerrymandering, sorry, wrong
Gerrymandering.
words. Gerrymandering
It's-
is happening.
it's-
Why voter suppression is happening. Why?
Right.
Because they know the people that you put in office has to talk for your communities,
That's
and they have to demand action for your communities.
Yes.
And it's very plain and it's very simple.
Right.
It's not something that's complicated.
It's not.
However,
It's not.
However, that trust is still an issue. Why should I go out to vote for you? Because every time you ask me to vote and I go out and I stand in these lines in the rain, in the sleet, in the snow,
Nothing
you
happens.
get there,
Mhm.
and then I have to knock on your door 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 times.
Yes.
And in some cases, not knock at all.
Right.
They're just basically seeing what access we have and what access we don't.
Right.
Why should I continue to trust the system again? Why should I do that?
Because-
I mean,
and that goes-
this is, and I
Yeah.
think that was the domino effect of
Right.
what we saw.
But
in
because
the
they-
last election.
Because they don't, that's it. They don't understand. A lot of them don't understand it. We keep undermining that. A lot of them do not understand how the system works. A lot of them still believe that the president of the United States sent checks to their houses.
Well, Rebecca, let's think about this, and this is
So-
something that we're coming to in the next question or so. But Carmela, this is what I put in one of those questions. This is what I have found to be the case. And Rebecca, we've talked about this before, and even in terms of just teachers. Okay, When
Bless you for the job that you do.
Thank you.
Bless you.
But you know what?
Bless you.
And Rebecca and I, we didn't necessarily want to admit this, but we found this to be the case in in 2020. When our condition is comfortable, just comfortable, the boat's not rocking to the left or to the right, we're apathetic.
Absolutely.
When the coals begin to get a little hot under our feet, then we are apt to make a yeah. Then we're apt to say, wait a second, what's happening? Something is not right going on here. But the thing about it is, there are other people out there in the community who are conditioned to continue to vote and to be a part of that moving body that creates that legislation, even when things are comfortable, even when things are optimal, they're going to be out there.
Well, I'm going to tell you, when I served at the 83rd legislature,
Right.
I saw Sylvester Turner do some phenomenal things.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was vice chair of the appropriations committee. He just did some phenomenal things, and I think one of the most impressive was the fact that he had this air of knowledge, and his demeanor, at the legislature to craft bipartisanship
Right.
conversations was powerful.
Wow.
And legislators would listen.
Yes.
Because he was also the chair of the Black Caucus at the time, but they would listen to what he had to say.
Yes.
And it was important because he knew what these issues were, and he was willing to stand behind those issues and also bridge relations to come to some sort of to level set the conversation in a way that would benefit everyone, and the folks that he spoke to knew that they would be beneficial too. And I just don't think that is, now that we're in this climate that we're in, bipartisanship is off the table. We have a group of folks that just want what they want, and they want to create the narrative the way that they want. They're going to land in their sandbox, and they're going to build a wall around that sandbox.
It's called a last stand.
And they don't want anyone in that sandbox if they don't approve of you.
Yes.
And so everybody has to work around the sandbox, but then everyone in our community, and I'll land here, wants to continue to redefine because they are defining again. So we're going from Black, African, Negro, colored, African American, Black. What are we? And so, it's a consistent redefining of who we are. And we need to say enough is enough. You know what? It's okay. We're going to define who we are, and we're going to define what we want. And we're going to define what the community needs are. And we're going to be able to get together to pool our money and resources together in order to provide that to the community.
Okay. So, and what I was getting ready to say, you actually segue, you and Crystal brilliantly, I should add, segue into the next question. Political pundits have long believed that apathy in voting and political activism is directly attributed to a community's immediate condition in society. Do you agree with that assertion?
And you know what? Since we're talking about the young people, let's segue that to younger people. You said your son is 20? How old is he?
He's 17.
He's 17 now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but you work with people who are in their 20s, early 20s. You're around them.
I do.
Okay. What do they say? And I'm just cutting to the chase on this. We know what their condition is. We know that this is and Rebecca, I know that you're not there, but you're close to there. I know that, listen, I know that this is the TikTok, Instagram. What's that other one? Snapchat. What's the other one that y'all use?
That's it.
Okay, TikTok, yeah, Instagram,
Snapchat, Black Planet,
TikTok.
Yeah, okay. Black Planet came out.
I don't know. But here's the thing: we are affected by that. Think about the amount of time and effort is put into those particular platforms. And those have 100% of our attention. What is it that we can do utilizing, if necessary, utilizing this type of technology and this type of road in order to get the young people to want to be a part of what is going to happen to their future. It scares me to think that so many people are so comfortable with leaving their future into the hands of so few. And they're the very ones that once it gets there and it's not what they want, then all heck breaks loose.
I think that there's a level of disconnect. The struggle of the civil rights movement is not the movement of Gen X, Z, Y.
Z, and I'm a millennial.
Right.
Millennial.
Yeah, she's a
It's
millennial.
not. It's not the same struggle. And I believe even the baby boomers really had an opportunity to kind of help to create that narrative, though they had the access
I'm the boomer.
to create. We just kind of were herded. In other words, right? So there was kind of like a herd mentality.
Okay.
Our ancestors are, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers.
There were expectations.
Right.
Yes.
And we had to meet those expectations. So
Yes.
they passed the baton,
Right.
and all of us were able to take that baton and run with it,
There were
right?
expectations.
And go into these
Yes.
spaces and places where we weren't necessarily wanted, but we were going to demand that we needed to be there because
Exactly.
we needed to integrate,
Yes.
that was also a construct.
That's
We'll
right.
leave that alone.
Yeah.
And we'll table that.
Okay.
But in that construct, to separate our men from the women and provide
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
benefits
Right.
to take our men out of the home.
Right.
And then the woman being then the head of the household, being both, right?
Right.
Father and mother.
Right.
And then from there, these life chances had to open up, and women needed to be educated.
Yes.
And so that these struggles that we talk about, are not germane
To that generation.
to that generation.
What
It's not. They don't have. You're talking about a phone where they can pick up the phone. They don't have to go on a microfiche. What is
Yes.
that?
Or to the
They don't have to
library.
go to the library.
Yeah.
I don't even know what microfiche.
They don't.
I know what a microfiche is.
I mean, I have a snapshot of that, but
Yeah, my birth certificate was
saying-
on a microfiche, and I had to go go.
but
get
I
it
mean,
out there.
the way in which we source and search for information is at the at our fingertips right here. And so anything, if I were to say to my son right now, which I have said, I need you to put down the phone, which I used to do every single summer with my son, I would have him write down 100. I would print out 100 words for him.
Okay.
I would take this phone away, and I would say, I need you to memorize these words, define these words,
Yes.
make construct some paragraphs.
Yes.
Right.
Using
But I
these
need
words.
you to use the dictionary to do it. I don't
Yes.
need you to get on the phone. I need you to go through the dictionary to
That's
do
right.
it.
Right.
And it changed the whole framework because what is that? It's a foreign entity,
But
right?
Carmela, will
But
they tell us?
this is what it is, and that the disconnect of the struggles that we went through, and that era of trying to gain access, is something that they cannot connect with, because by the time they were born, the parents were already there, and they had already made those strides and created those avenues for.
That was mentioned on Instagram,
Mhm.
by the way.
Oh, really?
One of the
Rhythm.
videos that I saw where, well, maybe not exactly relatable, but one of the parents said, we moved our children out to the suburbs, and
Yes.
we never gave them a history lesson on what Black people are.
Precisely.
And then
Those
now
land grants
right,
and
now we're
projects.
right.
Yeah.
Now they're
absolutely.
surprised. Now they are surprised
Mhm.
and shocked and confused and bewildered when they get called nasty derogatory names,
Right.
or when they're bullied, or when they're followed, or when they're asking questions, or when they thinking that they're doing something perfectly normal and then somebody has a problem.
But I think that there was a shield, right? There was this shield
Yes.
because we didn't want our children or our, grandparents, parents, uncles, aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters didn't want us to go through what they went through.
That's
So
right.
they created
They did.
they created the avenue for us to feel free enough to go, be.
Yes.
And so this is now, we're, what, 2 generations, away, the 2, 3 generations, we talk about what, 400 or 500 years of purgatory. And then now we're, at the end of this other spectrum where what do you mean that, folks were hung from trees, but that had nothing to do with me.
Right.
And you hear Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, and that's exactly what it is. It's strange. There's no connection to the fact that Billie Holiday had to travel through the South.
Yes.
And as she's traveling through the South, she's literally seeing people hanging from trees. And then to go to venues to play for people
Who did
had
that?
her
Yes.
and then go through the back door when you got there.
Right.
And entertain them. They have no connection to how that felt, the gravity of that struggle.
With that in mind, Carmela, why are they not coming to us to have this? Are they not concerned for their future? Are they only concerned with what's right in front of them? Will they be the generations that wait until the sky falls, until they try to act? How can we engage in the conversation with them to bring them into the fold? And we're not trying to be separatist and separate them from what's comfortable for them, because I know that they came up differently. Many of our young people came up differently around. It was not a homogenous, all black school or all the, they came up differently, which is fine. But how can we get them to engage with us? Because, like you said, or you said, someone just said, 70% of the under 40s, and this is under 40s throughout the demographics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, to answer the question, is that we have to go to the barbershops. We have to go to the beauty salon.
Cut to the vote.
We have to go to these spaces and places where our young people are, to sit down and to have these critical conversations. It's going to take not young people coming to us, but I think it's going to be a merging of the minds.
Right.
And I do believe that we are going to have to now roll up our sleeves and say, look, this is your oyster.
Yes.
You are the creator and the producer.
Right.
That is going to inherit what's already here.
And I hate to be the unfortunate bearer of bad news, but the sky is going to have to fall for them to understand it.
But I think they're courageous. I think people are so courageous right now.
I'm not talking about the strength. I'm talking about them bumping their heads before they get to the strength. Right? Yes. Because now you have to understand, beloved, the world is not going to be fair to you.
Well, did you see what happened in Colorado?
Right. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, they just closed down the school in Colorado, and all those young people are out there with signs and protesting. Their boots on the ground. Yeah. They get it,
but they get it. But a lot of them don't, right?
Yeah, that's
because
true. That's
comfort has been provided.
Precisely,
and that's what I'm saying.
Protection has been provided for
their condition.
And I get it. You want your children to grow up in the innocent. But one thing, and I'm going to say this, and I know Crystal's going to chew me out for this later, but Crystal, it has to be said. Black people don't have that option, unfortunately.
Of what?
We don't. I was about to say.
We don't have that option of protection and shieldness.
We do have it. We just have to create it.
But no. What I'm saying is, we have to tell them how life.
We're doing a disservice if we don't tell them how it really is. I understand where you come from.
But that's if they listen. Because
like my.
I mean, it's short. You're talking about dopamine.
Wait,
dopamine.
Hold on.
You know what I'm saying?
Like my mama always say, both sense is better than any sense that you can. Right. So we have to. Unfortunately, we have to tell them the truth. We have to tell them how the world is, how the world sees.
But let me ask you, ladies,
that's the only way that they can bridge it and overcome it and try.
So we know that this slate is about to become incredibly clean.
Right.
And when I say that, I mean we're no longer. Let's just be very, very clear and transparent. We're about to enter a situation where it's going to be, it's almost as though, we're living in a time period between 1890 something and the early 1900s, right? Or 1950s.
Because who would thought I would be living Reconstruction?
I'm saying, I'm saying, but I wanted to ask you, is it that now that this has happened in a way, and I know very quietly, I feel like this is a good thing. And I know that blows your mind when I say that, but you know why?
I agree with
You know
you.
why?
I agree with
You know
you.
why?
I
You
agree
know
with you.
why? You know why? Because now the codependency is over. And
You
there
gotta
is
wake
no
up. You gotta
more.
wake up.
There is,
Yes.
if these folks don't, if the folks that we're talking about that don't want bipartisanship and they don't want us in our spaces and places, the slate is clean. How are we now going to build and structure and strive and prevail? And we have builders, we have architects, we
Yes.
have engineers, we
Everything
have
we need
artists,
to
we
survive.
have
Yes.
doctors.
Yes.
And you know who talked about this? I
Teachers.
love you, Octavia Butler, in the Parable of Talents.
Okay.
She was prophetic
Yes.
because when you read that book, she talks about, I think it was 2032, 2023 or 2032, the year of, and she talks about this breakout of chaos, but she talks about the parable of talents and the people who had the talent going up into the hills to create their communities. And so I feel that in a way, but let me tell you, I'm not particularly comfortable with this. I come from the school that we come from, right? But at the same time, this is an opportunity for us to really bridge the kind of relations, and we're going to have to use the patience and perseverance to do it. Because a
Absolutely.
lot of our community, they don't understand.
Yeah.
And they want to remain where they are, but
Yeah.
there is a divine intervention happening.
I agree with
Do
that.
we think of it as the glass half full, or do we think of it as the glass half empty?
And
We've
I
got
see it as
people-
half full.
We've had people
I
in the
do.
political realm,
Yes.
And I see it as
like our
both.
Jasmine Crockett's
Right.
and our
And I
Cory
see,
Bookers, and they're and our our AOCs.
right. And
Bless
I
you.
see it as both,
And-
right? I see it as both. I see it as the glass half full and
Ayanna Presley.
and have empty. And the reason I say I see it both, because we have done, if we're honest with ourselves, we have done a very poor job of educating young people about their history.
100%.
We've done
100%.
a poor job.
100%.
So now, like you said, the Band-Aid is getting ready to be ripped off.
Absolutely.
And reality is getting ready to hit in ways we could never imagine.
Fathom.
But it needs to hit.
Right.
It needs to hit.
Reality needs to hit. But
Yes.
I think with that incoming reality, like you said, the talents are going to start rising from the ashes.
Absolutely.
Or rising out of
We're
that
the Phoenix rising.
Right. So it's going to be a bittersweet, like your one of your favorite phrases, Crystal, that I love so much, that baptism by fire, right?
Ooh.
So Crystal says that all the time. We're getting ready to go, and I know what she means when she says, when she calls me and says, Rebecca, we getting ready to go in a situation where it's baptism by fire, and I'm like,
We're about to be in the situation.
yeah, right. So, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be. But I think it'll be the each one teach one, each
Touch
one
one.
reach one, right? It'll start turning back, maybe not all at once, but it'll start turning back. At least I'm hopeful. That's all I got right now.
I'm going to say this to you, and what I find that's profound is throughout the history that we can that we can codify.
Yeah.
Is that violence has always been the mainstream for the group that we're referencing.
Right.
It always. I mean, let's really
Turn to violence.
call
Yes.
it what it is.
Yes.
We couldn't build communities and we couldn't place our money in banks because when it burnt down, we didn't have the insurance for people to
Right.
money.
Right.
Or the monies. We didn't have the means to build back.
Right.
But now we're smarter.
Absolutely.
We understand asset building, don't we?
Yes.
We understand now there are
Many more of us do.
There are
Yes.
levels to it.
Yes.
And there's sectors in the
Right.
community.
I was like, hey,
levels
back.
to it.
Tight.
Yes.
There are definitely levels in the community
Right.
where of this where we have to go back to basics, but we have to go back to basics. And perhaps maybe it is a method of a method and mode of operandi
Yes.
for us to then build these organizations where it's a handoff. Maybe it's one of the pieces that I thought of, like when I was talking about the justice impacted a group
Right.
that I happen to help and support, right?
And we work with a lot of justice impacted people here at the podcast.
Yeah, we do.
Precisely.
Yes.
So one of the
Yes.
one of the pieces that I brought to the organization I was working with at the time is,
Mhm.
why don't we, again, teach them how to fish, right? Teach people how to fish. Why not bridge relations with corporations or not even corporations, or companies or schools, like hypothetically, let's say Prairie View,
Right.
agriculture.
That's where I graduated from.
Hey,
Because
yes,
PB&M.
Dr. Goodwin, Dr.
Yes.
Oyster, my favorite folks. And so place our folks in positions where they can cultivate,
Yes.
right? And grow food.
Yes.
Learn how to have a relationship with the soil, you know,
And we can
segue
be-
into chemistry. We have a lot of justice impacted
Yes.
members in our community
And
that
they
are
can be the one-
incredibly brilliant
They
and
can be the
resilient.
ones supplying these organic things to these restaurants and to the,
Precisely.
Absolutely.
And our own restaurants.
yes.
But I do believe that mental health services and we need to have it. I mean, you can't, and nobody was ever birthed or born in a 5x5 cell. Let's
Right.
get real.
That's right.
And we are, Texas has one of the highest correctional incarceration rates in the
And
country.
recidivism, especially
And recidivism
Yes.
is like every 3 years. I think it's 60 to 70%.
Yes.
And then we're talking about bail reform. So I think that at this point, it is completely our responsibility.
Right.
And this responsibility, we will see that it's not a heavy burden, it's not a heavy weight. We just have to sit down, plan, and move.
And here is where educators come in.
Yes.
Y'all are beautiful. Y'all are amazing.
We are the foundation of it all.
Yes, 100%.
One of the big disruptors that I'm seeing, because people have figured out an uneducated society is a controllable society.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yes.
So now that people know that,
That's right.
what do we do with this information?
Right.
Destroy public education because that's where the masses go, right? So, teachers, you want to know why and I'm specifically speaking to you now.
Yes.
You want to know why it is so important not only for you to be involved in your classrooms, it's also to involve you in the political process, because we can't grow a nation without education.
Without yes.
That's factual.
Yes.
That's
And
factual.
we can't.
It's not gonna work.
Any
We don't have
rhetoric,
the
yes,
foundation.
any rhetoric that is steering anyone towards the belief that less education is still acceptable and you can be in the service industry. There's nothing wrong with the service industry, but you need to get as much education as you can, because it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Right.
And I'm going to also say to you,
Yes.
though, I believe that this, of course, again, this is an advantage. Why? Because now, instead of if we know the direction that this is going in.
Right.
And as I had mentioned to one of our organizational leaders, I said, okay, so folks want to burn books. Okay. So what we then need to do is maybe build warehouses so that we can store our own books.
Yes.
And then maybe it's a situation where, like we did back in the South, back in the day, we start homeschooling our kids.
Right.
We start teaching them. We start having community meetings where we can create curriculum, talk about historical aspects of how we were able to become like the largest group that patented the cell phone and the soles in our shoes and the refrigerator and the filament in the
Traffic
light
lights,
bulb
yes.
and the traffic light. And we can talk about these things, the T's, the golds, the diamonds, and the continent that funds it all. So we have an opportunity now to, that's cool if people want to, say, hey, the jobs, but the caveat to this is the fact that we are codependent on money? And do we
At this
switch
point,
to
at
do we
this point,
switch to a
yes.
barter system? People are so accustomed to the
Their currency.
comforts
Yeah.
that now maybe I'm not going to be able to get my nails done. Maybe I'm not going to be able to
You know, she-
go
she-
to go. No, I'm saying maybe it's going to be a
she struck a
thing
nerve.
because these are the comforts. These are the comforts that right, but these are the comforts that we have been that we're accustomed to, right? Maybe we need to build our own gas stations.
Well, Carmela,
Maybe we need to be able to survey the land to see whether or not we have oil on the land so that we can then barter. You know,
well,
I just these are aspects of it
and I think
that are important.
I think we need to really take our thought process to the next level, to a more technological level, because
Mm.
we have to be able to have a situation whereby if knowledge and education and the acquiring of education is going to into a more electronic form,
Mhm.
is there a reason for us to have a book warehouse storage facility where we're storing paper books? If we are in a situation now whereby we are going to be more cognizant of what's going on with the environment, are we going to go back to a place where we're looking for fossil fuels on the land? I think we got to be a step ahead.
Well, let me say this to you.
Yeah,
As I've said before,
yeah,
land, food, water, labor, transportation,
The
Mhm.
basic
that
needs.
that runs this corporation that we
Yes.
call the United States of America.
Yes.
And then if you think about it,
And-
that's people's basic needs.
And,
Right?
and we're talking
But
about
what I
going
mean-
back. You can
Yeah.
be technologically savvy, that's fine. But if they push this button like they're about to do with TikTok or they're threatening to do, everybody's content's gone.
and that's my point.
And so we have to go back to the fundamentals in order to know how to do a thing,
Well,
to build, to scale. We need masons, we need bricklayers, we need mathematically sound
but it's also
folks in our community to
important.
help us to maintain the structure.
So, but you're absolutely right. But what I'm saying too is that we need to create a space for ourselves where we are the ones. If we've got to pull money to be able to do it, creating the metas
We might not need it might not be money.
or whatever type
That
of
money might
currency,
be
that cryptocurrency or
currency
whatever.
is energy. Let me break it down.
We have enough
Currency-
millionaires. I don't know.
That's what we do. But I'm also
No,
saying that currency is it's our energy.
Okay.
Let's really break this down to what it is and how are we appropriating our energy, because
Okay, this is
currency
what-
is that.
This is
Period. And
right.
we give credence to that dollar. That's currency. It's energy.
Okay, my point is that okay. No, you're right. You're right. No, you're right. But my point is this. We need to also, while we're doing that, of course, we're not going to abandon everything that we have come to know is important. However, we cannot at this point afford to be in a space where internet or cyberspace is pulled from under us and we don't have any other way to disseminate our information for our people. We can't afford to be in that space.
No,
So what I'm saying,
dismissal. I don't think she's saying
Precisely.
dismissal.
no, listen to me. All that I'm saying is that we need to also be able to create spaces for ourselves where we are creating the metas and the TikToks so that we will never be at a place where if something is snatched from us, we cannot immediately.
We can hold the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna say this to you,
Well,
and
well,
I think
and
there's a
I-
buy-in with
and
that too. And these folks are
I-
actually bought out. The
I-
ones who are at the top of their game from
Yeah.
a technical perspective.
They are bought out.
I
Well,
Oh, there
Oh,
we
yeah.
are.
yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I don't think that I don't.
Are you gonna edit that out?
Well, I'm going to see what's going on with it. But you know what? It's not. Anyway, I'll say this.
Are we live? We're live.
Yeah, we're live.
I was like, are you gonna?
And we can go as long as we need to live. And that's why I was wondering what happened with that. But we do need to wrap up because we're at the wrap up time. But all that I'm saying is that while we are making sure that we shore ourselves up in these other areas that we are accustomed to being in right now, that we also make sure that we are not taking for granted that these other avenues that we use on a daily basis that sustain us, these technological spaces, internet. Some people are, internet business that's their complete business is internet. It's done through cyberspace. We've got to make sure that we have people who are as brilliant as anyone who have created these cyberspace platforms.
Okay, now I'm gonna play the devil's advocate.
Okay.
I love these brilliant ideas, but are we missing the fact that most of us don't get along with each other and don't trust each other?
And this is what I was talking about. Because she's right.
I mean, the ideas are brilliant. I get it, but again,
We have a communication
I hate to
challenge.
be the negative one in the group,
No, it's
but
not at all.
you have educated people. I'm talking about within our own community,
Right.
not the rest of the society. I'm just strictly talking about us. You have educated people versus non-educated people.
right.
You have wealthy people versus the middle class versus the poor.
Right.
You have, and again, I'm speaking
Yeah,
about us.
the social strata
Yes.
is
Like,
It's there.
Definitely.
It's
yeah.
there.
So, and even amongst educated people, we still have our
With
divisions.
divides. That's right.
So, how are we? Because what people fail to realize, and I have to bring this up all the time because I think people forget this. When we were in a segregated society, we didn't have a choice but to stick together.
And
the
make it
Black
work.
Wall
Yeah.
Streets, the Greenvilles,
Yes.
the Rosewoods,
Rosewoods.
Yes.
the El Dorado, Arkansas. All of those stuff that had happened was because we were in segregated, and it was either die individually or come together. You didn't
Right.
have a choice,
Right.
right? So we talk about, well, they did it back then. But what was the climate back then?
What was the glue that was holding us together?
I couldn't go eat at Morton's in 1956.
Right.
I don't care if I could afford it.
You had to go to Booker's Place.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't go to the Marriott Hotel in Boca Raton. I had to go to the Black Hotel because I was not allowed over there.
That's
Okay.
right.
So now that's what you talked about earlier when you talked about King integrating a burning house.
That's right.
So now that's the baseline of what we need to figure out.
Yes.
How can we trust each other? Because we as a people
Ooh, Rebecca, that's profound.
It is.
strongly divided. So if I can't trust you, guess what? I'm not going to do business with you.
Well, the thing with
And you would rather do business with someone else than
and always,
Yeah.
but I think that the climate is going to change
I do too.
because once this separation and I think what was profound too is when you look at California and you look at the fact that just impacted people.
Yes, big outs to California. My aunt's
California.
house,
okay.
my aunt's house burned down,
Oh,
and her whole
I'm
community.
sorry.
She's from
Oh,
Altadena,
no.
California.
I saw that on
Is that
Yeah.
the predominantly black?
Yeah, Altadena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, her whole
That's where Nipsey Hussle, I think, in Long Island took
their
I think it's
home.
left.
I think so.
No, her home is ashes.
Oh, Rebecca.
A house that her and her husband built for 50 years
Yeah.
is in rubble now.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear
Yeah.
that.
I am too, and just just praying for the people in California,
California, yes.
because I know
Thank you for recognizing. We need to recognize it.
Yeah.
to know.
Yes.
And the justice impacted community
Yeah.
is making $5 a day, and I think that this is a precursor to something a little bit bigger that we need to look at.
Right.
So we need to be able now to bring this community in,
Yes.
and we need
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
We need to be more insular with our plans. We need to be insular with the way that we're moving. We need to be insular with these conversations. And, though we don't get along, and in some areas, and there's levels and sectors
We
and
gotta figure it out.
lines to it,
We gotta
I
figure it
believe
out.
that the divine is going to force us to figure it out.
Yes.
And we're being forced right now. And when this situation happens on,
Mhm.
on the 20th, on Martin Luther King's birthday,
Yes.
R.I.P. to the ancestors,
Yes.
which I think is profound, to do, considering that we're supposed to be woke and nobody wants a woke agenda, but you're going to do it on a man's birthday who was awake,
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But I think that this is a new frontier for the melanated community or African American community. It is a new frontier,
Yes.
and our children, we are going to have to prepare, and our elders,
Yes.
we're going to have to take that knowledge that's been inside of us and ingrained in us, and we're going to have to now pass that baton in a new way,
Right.
in a reinvented fashion,
Right.
to help to bridge the understanding, and then to come together, because we're better together. We're unified this way. We're a community of unified people, and we do share goals, and we don't want to see our people hungry, and we don't want to see our people struggling.
Carmela, Rebecca, we could talk about this all day long.
Oh, we have gone.
We could talk about this all day long, but you know what? I think that we just kind of just nipped at the tip of the iceberg, because there are several conversations that just came out of this one that we need to have. And Carmela has said that she's got maybe a couple of people that she'd like to bring to the table who also could lend some insight into what we're talking about. But with that in mind, I'm looking at that clock. But Rebecca, Carmela,
Thank you.
y'all, thank you so much.
Thank you
Y'all
so
know
much.
we're still, like we said,
Oh, y'all, this conversation has literally given me goosebumps. I don't get goosebumps often, guys.
There's a part
but
two in there.
there's definitely a
Part
part
two.
two. But we want to thank you so much for coming in. We still, and I say this every week, we are getting closer and closer to bridging that technology gap where it's going to be seamless. But I still got to get up, and I'm going to end our podcast. You're going to see me jump out of the frame for just a minute, but it's not going to be for long. But like we say every week, Rebecca, we can do it.
Bye,
We'll
guys.
talk to you later. See you later, guys.